So we're on time. We've got 5 minutes with my esteemed panel. So first question really to Emma. I think that's on. It might not be actually. I might have. Quick question. How complicated, how difficult was it to set up ACE?
I thought it was going to be very complicated and very difficult, and I'm not a technician. I'm not certainly anywhere near kind of the qualities of John and Richard over here. And I thought I was going to have to get into a very complicated workflow. Actually, if you understand the basics, you really don't. The cloud is how I see. I mean, even I can upload to the cloud, which says that nearly anyone can upload to the cloud. But once we'd done that deal, they gave us access to basically a server that, or a connection that's attached to our computers, and we just open it, and it's a drag and drop process. The transcoding side of things is a little complicated, and all my technicians have been fully trained on that side of things, because you do need to know your codecs, you do need to know your frame rates, you do need to know your pixel sizes and things like that. But to be honest, most technicians would know that anyway. We're moving into such a digital era that they're used to looking at those kind of things for acquisition purposes, so not as hard as people would think.
But I think you'd agree from that short presentation on it, it's a really impressive site and just sort of shows where a lot of brands are going now with their content, etc. And, really high quality as well, very, very watchable material up there. Thom, quick question for you. In the time that you've been managing the Pinewood data centre, how have things been growing? Where are things going, and what sort of ideas can you give us?
For the data centre or for the transfer centre?
Both.
The data centre, we saw an instant uptake of mainly London-based companies who took rack space with us to have off-site backups and render areas a lot faster than we were expecting. We also have an area which comes and goes with productions, and as leading to the transfer centre, we've seen most productions now shooting digitally rather than on 35mm. They always need somewhere to store their content. They take rack space as well. I think the big factor as far as shooting digitally was Pirates of the Caribbean last year decided that they were going to shoot on the Red 1 just before the Red Epic became available. That seemed to be the catalyst to set everyone off. Everyone saw that as, well, they're doing it, we can as well. So now the majority of films shoot using Alexa, Epic, Red 1. We used to have stuff on Genesis, but not so much anymore. And that's happening throughout film and television. And it's been an exponential growth recently. Also, with the shortage of SR stock, we now see that so many facilities are accepting stuff as usually ProRes files. And people need places to store these. Rather than having a warehouse full of tapes, you now have to have a data centre to be able to store those in.
I mean, recently I've been down at Pinewood quite a lot, and it's great to see because it's absolutely buzzing. I mean, it's rammed. You've got Snow White and the Huntsman filming down there at the moment, a huge castle set with a massive green screen, the likes of which you've never seen. They've just wrapped on Dark Shadow, which is Tim Burton and Johnny Depp's new film, and again using the back lot there, the water stage, again huge blue screen, created a sort of 1850s American harbour complete with life-size trawlers, lighthouse, etc. And Ridley Scott's new film is filming down there at the moment as well, Prometheus, which is the prequel to Alien. It's the biggest movie ever made in the UK, the most expensive movie ever made in the UK. And when I had a tour of the data centre, it's all been shot on red, and there in one of the racks, so big, not very big, not certainly as big as my server for Escape, etc. The whole of Prometheus is there stored. So again, it just shows you where all of this is heading. Richard, we talked a little bit about new camera technology, etc., etc. Can you see that the likes of Sony, Panasonic, Canon are going to slow up? Because there's a big launch happening in a few weeks' time with Canon out in Hollywood, and then Europe. Sony are always going to be bringing out new product. Is it going to slow down, or are there going to be new products all the time now?
No, new products all the time with a very much shorter shelf life. We found that we're obviously a rental business as well as being a production facility. On the rental side, we used to guarantee generally about a year, 18 months, 2 years for a product cycle. That's now reduced to, in some cases, less than a year. And the ones which are the most agile and the ones which have survivability are the ones which, strangely enough, are able to manage, harvest, and put metadata through the actual post-production. It's amazing, say with one of the reasons actually that Thom was talking about everything going digital, the main driver for that is actually 3D. Because 3D and film don't mix at all. It's impossible to capture, except with IMAX, and even again that's one specific example, to capture 3D properly on film, simply because of film weave and left eye, right eye disparity. So they are digital formats, and when you shoot digitally in 3D, you capture the information from the rig, from the camera position, and that gets fed through onto the media. So anything that's metadata agile is going to have survivability.
That's interesting. Before I move on to Chopper, any questions from the floor for the panellists? Anything that you want clarifying, clearing up? Just while I think about it, this afternoon at 2:30, you've got Emma's session. Very, very different to the session that you've just all sat through this morning. A lot more sort of production orientated. So you've got Donna Mulvey, who's head of post-production at Maverick, talking about embarrassing bodies and a bunch of her other productions. I'll go into a bit more detail on Escape to the Country. Chopper's got a different presentation this afternoon. So real, sort of rich session this afternoon with a lot of takeaway. And Emma will be talking more about what her role involves and the sort of the issues in terms of long-form production that we're all faced with now and in the future. Chopper, last question for you. Really interesting, those last three key words: backup, viruses. And I hadn't even really considered viruses because my facility in Talkback is a very closed facility. I don't deal with external companies, although external companies have come to me and asked to use my facility, and so far I've turned them away. So viruses are not something that I've had to deal with, but really on my radar screen now. But the other key word was detail. What detail are you finding that people aren't spending time on?
I think I elaborated earlier on regards the obviously assuming a product as defined by a brochure is actually the product that arrives. That's sort of number one. But the detail in preparation, it strikes me a lot of our perception of how technology works is all based upon our experience on our laptop. I can drag and drop it. I can play back the video. I don't understand why this is complicated. But when we work into a shared environment, a collaborative environment, there are so many other different rules and processes involved that we get caught out on lots of times. Issues I've had certainly are permissions. It's very important that we actually set up permission structures correctly about how media is managed and distributed within a shared environment. I've recently had an experience from a major broadcaster where they set their permissions so that their desktop elements were open for everyone, and we actually had a very expensive SAN go down because it got full up of MP3 files that somebody was downloading from an iTunes or something like that. So crazy little things like that. Also, the example of product brochure and product reality. Again, it tends to be shared environments. One was network bandwidth and about how contentious networks can get if we don't actually have the right interface about how we get media off. Other experiences I have is when we're in a shared environment is the ability to read and write and refresh. And this sounds very simple. At your desktop level, you can read, you can rewrite, your folders automatically populate there to you. But when you're in a shared environment, it's a very different world because obviously we're having to manage random reading and writing across multiple things. One big problem I've had lately, very much with automation and workflows, is that some centralized storage solutions do not automatically refresh their folder. So if you're scanning folders to see if activities occurred and something occurs but the folder doesn't get refreshed, your workflows don't automate. And that's actually a basic fundament of some server systems out there. So we have to make sure and test those workflows with that hardware in preparation. So it's just incredible, how quickly workflows get blocked, operations get blocked just because of minutiae detail and because of assumptions of how we think something's going to work.
Right, I'm aware of time, and I have run over slightly, so many, many thanks to you for giving us your attention, and big thanks to my panel for all of their input. And like I said, we're back here at 2:30. David's at the back there, so please, if you haven't seen the F3 material, do go and see it. The BMW 500 with the iPads, the NEX, and the F3. And hope to see you back here at 2:30. Thank you very much.